All right. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We are back. Continuing with our look at the triennial Torah portion. This week we are dealing with Genesis 43. Last week we read probably about half of 43, but this week we'll deal with the entire chapter here and deal with some other things that we see inside of the chapter, specifically dealing with the denial of self. To deny self. Deny self. Okay, so we're going to just go ahead and pull up and read chapter 43 in its entirety, and then we'll go back and discuss after. So let me just go ahead and pull this up for us here. We'll go ahead and read together. Oh, not together. We'll listen as it is read, starting with the first verse here.
Genesis 43, 1. But the scarcity of food was severe in the land. And it came to be, when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought from Mitzrayim, that their father said to them, Go back, buy us a little food. But Yehudah spoke to him, saying, The man vehemently warned us, saying, You do not see my face, unless your brother is with you. If you let our brothers go with us, we go down and we buy you food. But if you do not let him go, we do not go down. Because the man said to us, You do not see my face, unless your brother is with you. And Yisrael said, Why did you do evil to me, to inform the man that you had still another brother? And they said, The man kept asking us about our relatives, saying, Is your father still alive? Have you another brother? And we informed him according to these words. How could we know that he would say, Bring your brother down? And Yehudah said to Yisrael, his father, Send the boy with me, and let us arise and go, and live and not die, because we and you, and also our little ones, both we and you and our little ones, I myself shall stand guarantee for him. For from my hand you are to require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we had not delayed, truly, by now we could have returned this second time. And their father Yisrael said to them, If so, then do this. Take some of the best fruit of the land in your vessels, and bring a present down for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, nuts and almonds. And take the double silver in your hand, and take back in your hand the silver that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. It could have been a mistake. And take your brother, and arise, go back to the man. And El Shaddai give to you compassion before the man, so that he shall release your other brother and Benjamin. And I, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. And the man took that present and Benjamin, and they took double the amount of silver in their hand, and arose and went down to Mitzrayim, and stood before Joseph. And Joseph saw Benjamin with them, and said to the one over his house, Bring the men home, and make a great slaughter, and prepare, for these men are to eat with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph said, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, It is because of the silver which was put back into our sacks the first time that we are brought in, to throw himself upon us and fall upon us, and to take us as slaves, our donkeys too. So they came near to the man over the house of Joseph and spoke to him at the door of the house and said, "Oh, my master, we indeed came down the first time to buy food, but it came to be when we came to the lodging place that we opened our sacks and saw each man's silver in the mouth of his sack. Our silver is in its weight, and we have brought it back in our hand, and we have brought down other silver in our hands to buy food. We do not know who put our silver in our sacks." But he said, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your Elohim and the Elohim of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. Your silver had come to me." And he brought Shimeon out to them. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water. And they washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys fodder. And they made the present ready for Joseph's coming at noon, for they heard that they were to eat there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house and bowed down before him to the earth. And he asked them about their welfare, and he said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" And they said, "Your servant our father is in good health. He is still alive." And they bowed their heads down and did obeisance. And he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "Elohim show favor to you, my son." And Joseph hurried, for his emotions were deeply moved towards his brother, and he looked for a place to weep, and went into his room and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out and controlled himself, and said, "Serve the food." And they set him a place by himself, and them by themselves, and the Mitzrites who ate with him by themselves, for the Mitzrites could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Mitzrites. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at each other in astonishment. And he took portions to them from before him, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much of any of theirs. And they feasted and they drank with him.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay, let us go back up here and look at a few things here. Let me just go up. All right, so let us look at a few things here. Last week, when we looked at some of this chapter, we talked about the fact that we see that Jacob, or as it's said here, Israel, in the verses here. Let me get mine. All right, you're right. Set it up for me. Okay. So we see over here that Israel is going along with this request of Joseph to go ahead and send his beloved. Right, he's putting his full trust in the Almighty, so that he says, "If I am bereaved, I am bereaved. Whatever happens, happens," and he's willing to deal with whatever that is. And so we want to think about and kind of learn an important lesson. When we look at the interactions here between Yaakov and his sons as it relates to Benjamin, because we know what Joseph is trying to do. He wants to see his family, right? He wants to see again his family. Even we see over here, he asks, what's the well-being of this father that you speak of, right? But the thing that is required of Yaakov is that he give his all to the master. Mm-hmm. Right? The thing that is required of Israel mm-hmm. is that he give his all to the master. I think this here is a very powerful lesson and message that exists here in the story. And it is certainly something that is of utmost importance as it relates to you and I. Mm-hmm. If we have things that we are keeping from the master, Yeshua, these things can prevent us from being in right relationship with Messiah. When we think about Joseph over here, he said, if you don't come back with your brother, don't come back. He said, you do not see my face unless your brother is with you. Right? These are the conditions. Right? And so when we think about the conditions, right, understanding that, like, we know what Benjamin meant to Israel. Mm-hmm. Right? We know that he was his beloved son. And so just kind of at the surface level here, Joseph is making this request. But when we understand kind of what's beneath everything, we can see that this idea that the master, who is Joseph, wants the all of Israel. If he gives him his all, he'll grant him his desires. Right? They in order to survive, in order to gain the things necessary for a living, in this case it's the food, right? They're going up to buy the food. In order to acquire the things that are necessary for life, the only requirement that the master is saying is bring me your brother, which happens to be the very most beloved thing of Israel. Mm-hmm. Okay, he lost his favorite son, which Israel, that is, lost his favorite son, Joseph, right? That was from his favorite wife, which he also lost, right? And the brothers knew that he couldn't stand to lose anyone else. But when we look at Joseph and remember that Joseph is a type of Messiah, it teaches us this lesson that is very important for us to learn, that nothing can come between us and Messiah. Mm. Nothing can come between us and the Master, right? This is what we see over here. So let's think about these things as we go over and look at Luke Luke. The Gospel according to Luke, chapter 14. Luke, chapter 14. Start reading at verse 25. And read down to 33.
It says Luke 14:25, and large crowds were going with him and turning. And he said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and his own life, so he is unable to be my top one.
And whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my top one. For who of you, wishing to build a tower, does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build, and was unable to finish. Or what sovereign going to fight against another sovereign does not sit down first and take counsel, whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him, who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks conditions of peace. So then every one of you who does not give up all that he has is unable to be my top one.
All right, very good. So let's look at a few things here. When we go up here, looking at the idea that we find over here, Messiah is saying that, first of all, you must, he says, hate. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father, mother, wife, this is everyone, children, brothers, sisters, and his own life too, he is unable to be my top one. You can't begin to be taught by Messiah unless you first deny yourself. Unless you first hate yourself. Well, what does this mean here? Let's see. Let's see what this word is. If you look at this here, hate. This word here in the Greek is miseo, which is hatred, to detest, to persecute. By extension, to love less, or to hate or be hateful. Let's see. Let's look at this real quick here. Hold on. Okay, let's look over at, first of all, we want to look at this. I want to look closer at this word here. It's very important. Because Messiah is saying that this is what we must do if we want to follow him. If we want to follow him, we must do this thing. If we don't do it, we can't follow him. Right? So we probably want to know exactly what he's saying here. Let's look at this in the let's see here, word study. Okay, let's see. Usually implying active ill will in words and conduct, a persecuting spirit, where it stands as opposite to agapeo, which is love. Let's see here. Persecute. All right, this is kind of giving us the same types of ideas. Detest, abhor. Specifically, as opposite of love, which why the scriptures version gives us this footnote as to love less, right? It's kind of giving us this, it's putting it against love, right? But kind of in the context, we're understanding, I would say, this idea to have to do with what it is that we allow to influence us, right? Because these are the most influential things in one's life, the people that are closest to you, right? Your father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, or even your own thoughts. Are any of these things preventing you from doing the things that Messiah will have for you to be doing? If so, you're putting these things above Messiah, which disqualifies you. You're not operating the way that one should, right? When you allow these things, these relationships, father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, or even your own self to influence you in a way that is contrary to the Most High, right? You have to love those ones less, right? We can't love and hate both simultaneously when the Most High says that we're supposed to love our neighbor, right? We love our brother as ourselves, but over here he says you gotta hate him, right? But we have to think about, why is he saying this? What does he mean? And we have to think about the idea that the Most High, the Almighty, who deals with us through his son Yeshua, must be first. Right? This is something that we have to think about as a prerequisite to following after Messiah, is to understand that he must be the primary influence in our life, more so than the ones who've been influencing us the most from the very beginning. You know, your parents, right? He must be the most influential voice for you, or you're not able to be his top one. You can't even begin to be a disciple of Messiah if you're not able to understand his place and who he is. Right? He said, if anyone comes to me and does not do this thing, does not put me, Yeshua, in my proper order of influence, you're not able to be my top one. I feel like there's no difference there. There's no difference there with that than if we go over to say, just think about the idea that the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. Right? So you can't begin to understand the wisdom of the Most High if you don't first have the fear of Yahweh. Right? And the fear of Yahweh, of course, is having an understanding of who he is and what he's capable of doing, and what he's capable of, the way that he's capable of dealing with you. When we think about the fear of Yahweh, the fear of Yahweh is the thing that causes you to understand that if I, for whatever reason, decide that I'm going to walk outside of the will of the Most High, then something bad very well could happen to me. Right? And the Proverbs tells us that the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. We can't begin to enter into an understanding of what the right application of knowledge is outside of knowing the Most High. Let's go over to Exodus. What?
And I think that is why gaining self-knowledge, people talk about waking up or whatever.
Knowledge of self.
Gaining knowledge of self. And then it's like you
Go
know
ahead.
what I mean? That's
Go
not
ahead.
enough.
But that ain't nothing.
Because that's just going to puff you up.
Exactly.
It's not going to necessarily bring you to where you need to be at to receive the Most High.
When you think about some of these heathens, I should say. When you think about some of these heathens, right, and some of their ideas that they have, like say for instance, like the Nation of Islam, or not like regular Islam, but like the Nation of Islam, or like the 5%ers or something like that, where that's one of the things that they talk about, the knowledge of self. Right? I got the knowledge of self. Right? But the way we understand things is totally different than that. The knowledge of self don't bring you nothing.
It should bring you to repentance.
It brings you down. If I get the knowledge of self, and gain an understanding of who I am, it don't do nothing for me but to let me know how and what a bad condition that I'm in. Right? But when I gain the knowledge of the Almighty, when I gain the knowledge of the Most High, when I understand who He is, now we're starting to see something. Right? The scripture says it's the beginning of knowledge. Okay? Exodus 1 through 3. Here, Exodus 20, verses 1 through 3. Read that right there.
It says, and Elohim spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim.
The first thing He does when the Most High speaks to Israel, Israel is able to hear the very voice of the Almighty. And the first thing He says is, this is who I am. What else He said?
Who brought you out of the land of Mizraim, out of the house of slavery.
He said, this is who I am, and this is what I'm capable of. He just taught them right there the fear of Yahweh. You ain't just see what I just did well, first of all, you ain't just see what happened to Mizraim. I did whatever I wanted with them. 10 times. 10 times I did them how I wanted to do them, and there wasn't nothing that they could do about it. 10 times I did it. That's what He said. And guess who did it? Me. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. That right there, Exodus chapter 20, verse 2, is the fear of Yahweh being manifest to Israel right there. They're getting an understanding, oh, I experienced these things that happen. I saw the blood. I saw the flies. I saw the plagues that went on the animals. I saw the frogs. Right? I saw all of the things. I saw the death of the firstborn. I saw all of those things. And if I didn't already know, now I know that the one behind it is Yahweh. He explained to them that He is one to be feared. Like fear. Like literally scared. And every other thing that goes along with it. Fear in every sense of the word. Not just the good parts. Not just reverence and respect. Not just that. That and every other part of fear is encapsulated in that. Because they know now he's able to do all of that. He's able to destroy all of their false gods and deities. And he did it. He's not just able to do it, he did it. Okay? This is who I am. And then what he said right there in verse 3.
You have no other mighty ones against my face.
Don't put nothing else in front of me. And this is such a vast concept over here. But when we think about what Yeshua said, he said the exact same thing. Don't put nobody in front of me. Not your father, not your mother, not your sister, not your brother. Not even your own thoughts, your own self, your own wants and desires. Don't put them in front of me. Or you can't even be my disciple. You can't even hear the things that I got to say to you unless you're able to not do those things. Wait, I say that right. If you're able to not do those things. Let's keep on going. Let's go over here. Deuteronomy 6, read verse 5 right there.
And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and all your being and all your might.
He said, you shall love Yahweh with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. He didn't say love your Elohim with most of your heart. He didn't say the vast majority of your soul, love me with that. He didn't say with almost all of your power, love me with that. He said all of it.
Cool.
He said every single bit of it, you love me with that. But thinking back to what Yeshua has said over there, if you're not able to do that, you can't be my disciple. And so when you think about these things together now, you think about these two things together that we see the Most High saying in the Torah. We see that what Yeshua is saying to these people that are seeking to be his disciples. The connection is that there can't be nothing that is higher than the Most High. We can't put nothing on a pedestal, higher than Messiah. We have to give Messiah our everything, not most of everything, but our everything. We can't hold nothing back. And so when we think about Joseph, when we think about Joseph, what he's doing over here with the request to bring Benjamin, he's saying, I need everything. I need your all. I need your all. I need everything that you have to give, holding nothing back. If you want to receive of me. Right? Remember, he said, don't come back round here if you don't have your brother with you. Right? He said, don't come back here unless you're ready to give me your all. And so, again, when we think about Exodus chapter 21 through 3, when we think about Deuteronomy 6 and 5, what we're talking about here is basically idolatry. It's basically understanding that we're not able, in order to make Yahweh our Elohim, we can't put things above him. He's Elohim, and we can't make other Elohim be higher than he is. Primary thing. Idolatry. Putting the Most High first. It's so easy for us to become idol worshipers. It's so easy. Right? Because that idol that you made is that thing that you decided that is more important than the Most High, and you want to give that thing more attention than you give the Most High. You've made an idol. Unless you're able to deny yourself, unless you're able to put everything beneath, if you're not able to put everything beneath Messiah, you've become an idol worshiper. You've become an idol worshiper. And Yeshua is saying over here in, what we looked at over here in Luke, if you want to be my top one, you can't be an idol worshiper. You can't idolize your mother, father, sister, brother, and their thoughts and ideas outside of my thoughts and ideas, my influence. You can't idolize your own self and your own mind. You have to deny those things, deny yourself, so that you're able to follow after me. Let's look at another interesting thing, which is not as explicit, but it's giving you the same idea. Let's look at Acts 15. It's always necessary for us to put everything beneath the Most High first. Then we're able to follow him. It says it right here in a different kind of a way. But let's look at it. Acts 15:19. Acts 15:19. Read 19 through 21.
He says, "Therefore I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim, but that we write to them to abstain from the defilements of idols, and from whoring, and from what is strangled, and from what is blood. For from ancient generations Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath."
Okay, very good. So when we think about what's going on over here and this council in Jerusalem, right? The council in Jerusalem, they're trying to figure out how they're supposed to deal with these Gentiles. The people are making these accusations and saying that there's people that are saying that you got to be circumcised in order to become a follower of Messiah. And the council comes up with these things that are going to be the only prerequisites for Gentiles. In Acts 15, chapter 20, it says, this is the things: abstain from the defilement of idols, from whoring, from what is strangled, and from blood. These four things. But what we have to understand when we look at these restrictions that are placed on the Gentile newcomers, from a cultural perspective, these things are all linked to idolatry. These things are all linked to idolatry. And so the prerequisite is forsaking idolatry and its practices. And then once you do that, then you'll learn all of the things that you're supposed to be doing, because you'll be learning and hearing Moses preached every week on the Shabbat. But you can't be no idol worshiper and serve the Most High. You have to deny all influences that's outside of the Almighty. That's what this is saying over here, right? When we understand the cultural significance of abstaining from idols, which seems kind of obvious, but when we think about from whoring, it don't just mean like going to the local brothel, right? It don't just only mean that, because they had temple prostitutes, kind of like what we see with Yahuda, what Judah goes and believes that Tamar is. They have these temple prostitutes that that hung around and they did their business, but it was related to idol worship. And so when we think about this over here in Acts chapter 15, it's talking about that. Things that are strangled and things that have blood. These things are all dealing with these. It's interesting when you think about the marketplace of the time. They had these places where, if they had surplus foods that was offered up to these false gods, they would have surplus of this stuff extra. They can't just give it all to the gods. They got extra. And so they take the extra and then they sell it to the marketplace, and then the marketplace sell it to the people.
It's all connected.
And so now you got these things that were strangled and these things that wasn't bled properly the way that we do it. And there was actually things that was offered unto idols. And then you taking it. Just like how when you look at that little documentary that Chris Rock did about the hair. That was some eye-opening things right there. It was kind of like, it was like funny, but it was real at the same time.
Shaving their heads.
Yeah, where the people in India, where the best hair comes from, where the best weave comes from, India. And meanwhile, they have these people who grow their hair and then shave it all off and give their hair to whatever idols, that the gods that they have over there. They offer their hair unto these gods, and then the temple, to make money, they sell it to the manufacturers, and they make weave out of it.
That's crazy.
And so these people, our people, walking around here with this hair that's been sacrificed to gods on their heads. These things that was sacrificed to idols. And the apostles is saying, these is the four things that you got to be separated from in order to be counted among the brethren. And then how many of these women out here today is walking around with this fancy expensive hair weaves that meanwhile they was things sacrificed to idols.
Those real expensive wigs.
Straight from India, real hair. Straight from India.
It was like they literally, the marketplace was connected to the
temple. It was connected. It was absolutely connected. And so he's saying you got to separate yourself from everything that's idolatrous. Separate from everything that is idolatrous. Then you could be part. And so, again, thinking about the idea of giving over everything. let's go over to let's look at something else here. Let's go over to Psalms. Because we're thinking about Joseph over here. We're thinking about Joseph and his requirements for his brethren by saying, I need your all. Give me your all. Nothing's good enough. You gave me the one brother, but I'm now, oh, you got this other brother?
Mm-hmm.
Bring him over here. Let me check him out. Let me see what's good with him. But he's saying, what he's really saying is, I want your all so that I could bless you. Let's look at Psalms 119 and 113.
One 19 and 113 says, I have hated doubting thoughts, but I have loved your Torah.
Read that again.
It says, I have hated doubting thoughts, but I have loved your Torah.
He said, I have hated doubting thoughts. Let's look at this here. Let me see this. First of all, this word here, what is this? Hate. Sane, hate, enemy, foe, hate, odious. These doubting thoughts have become a stench in my nostrils. They're odious. I hate them. They're my enemy. My foe. I hate them things. These doubting thoughts. But what's that vain thoughts? What's this word here? Se'af. Divide. To be divided in mind. Skeptic. Right? Being skeptical. What's the root here? The root is here. This 5586. To divide up to this branch. Right? This idea of having doubt is like a tree and you clipping off a branch from it. To disbranch a tree. Right? When you think about the branches of a tree, the way that the nutrients and things get to the most important parts, the leaves and then the fruit of the tree, is through the branches. And so you're to clip off these integral parts of the structure, right? It is something that's extremely detrimental to its proper growth. In fact, if you want to stunt the growth, or if you want to redirect the growth, you clip the branches, right? If you want to direct the growth of a tree, you can cut off the branches so that you could, just like how the Chinese or whoever those people are, Japanese people who make those bonsai trees, right? Where they sit up there and clip off the branches to make the tree grow in the way that they want for it to grow. But it's kind of a redirection of the growth of it.
Even with the grapevines.
Yeah, and with the grapevines, specifically with the grapevines, when you look, we just went to this vineyard out in on our California trip, and it's interesting when you look at these vines. These, like, my grapevines might be, I don't know, they might be like 1 inch and a quarter thick, like the actual base of these of my grapevines that are probably, I don't know, they might be 10 years old at this point. But these vines that we saw, these things was like a few inches thick.
Been there since the 70s.
Is that when
I think they've been there since the 70s.
Right, so you're talking about 40 years old.
That's why they said they was going to replant.
Yeah, right. But these things were thick.
Mm-hmm.
But you would think if something's been growing for so long, it would be this huge thing. But these things are really thick, but they're short. They're just like a few feet high. Not because they couldn't grow that high, but because the vine dresser keeps those to a certain length, and so that all of the juices and the nutrients and things gets into the grapes, right? And so, but he directs the growth of the branches. And so when we think about the idea of these doubting thoughts are redirecting the growth of faith. And then so the psalmist is over here saying that I hate the things that redirect my faith, which is doubt. I hate those things. And so in order for us to live a life that doesn't allow for these doubting things to come on our mind, we must hate those things.
Cast those things down.
Toss them, throw them away. And so that goes back to what Yeshua was saying in terms of hating your mother, your father, mother, sister, brother. When these people, not just random hate your mother, father, sister, and brother, but when these people come around and they not talking about what the Most High talking about, I hate those thoughts. I hate those things that you're trying to enter into my situation.
Don't be open-minded.
Open-mindedness is of the devil. Right? We can't allow for these people to come around and begin to try to disbranch us. Because the Most High, Yeshua, he is the husbandman, right? And he'll direct our growth, right? He'll snip away at the branches that he wants, right? Hebrews 11:6. We probably mentioned this last week, but we didn't mention this part. We're going to say mention today. Hebrews 11 verse 6. Read this right here.
Hebrews 11 verse 6 says, "But without belief it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to Elohim has to believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who earnestly seek him."
He said, first of all, without faith it's impossible to please him. That's why you hate a doubting thought. Doubt's the opposite of faith. Without faith it's impossible to please him. So I hate the things that's going to enter into my situation, doubt in my faith. I hate those things. I want to keep those things out. I want to block those things coming in. Oh, what you talking about? I don't want to hear that foolishness you talking about. Here, stop that. But not only that, but he says, for he that comes to Elohim, this is the same thing that Messiah was talking about when he was talking to these disciples that wanted to follow after him. He that cometh to Elohim. Right? You got to first hate these people who you know of as your influencers. He says here, for he that comes to Elohim must believe that he is. That's the same thing we looked at in Exodus chapter 20. You have to believe that Elohim is who he in fact is. He said, for he that comes to Elohim must believe that he is. That he is what? That he is Elohim. Mm-hmm. That he is the mighty one. That he is the one that's Elohim of the heavens above and the earth beneath, and there's none besides him. You got to believe that first and foremost. You got to fear Elohim. Because once you know that he is the Elohim of the heavens above and the earth beneath, then you understand that he's capable of dictating where you will reside for eternity. You have that fear of Elohim, and now you're able to operate accordingly. But when you have that fear of Elohim, when you understand who he is, you also understand, as it says in chapter 6, what we just read, is that he is a rewarder to them that half-heartedly seek him. That just kind of seek him, kind of just a little bit. He's a rewarder to them. That's not what that says. That says that he is a rewarder to those who earnestly seek him. Not just kind of, I'm kind of just checking out what it say in the thing. Just kind of half-heartedly checking it out. Let's see what that word is over here in the Greek. The Greek, you know what I'm saying? It's the Greek. Right? But it means what it means though. Right? That's what this word is. To search out, that is to investigate, to crave. If I crave something, oh man, I wish I could just get some of this so and so. If I'm craving it, you pregnant people in the chat, go ahead and put it in the chat when you be craving these little things you be craving. Right? When you craving that thing, you got to just keep on going until you get to that thing that you craving it. If you're craving something, you can't stop until you get that thing. But that's what this word means when you're searching it out. I'm looking for something. Like my whole point of looking is, in fact, finding the thing. Right? I'm not just looking and then I can't find it, so I stop looking. I'm truly searching. I'm truly intent on finding that which I'm looking for. This verse is telling me that that Elohim is a rewarder of those that search out and keep on searching out and seeking him. Because if you knock, then the door will be open to you. And so when we think about this idea of diligently seeking, right, this search diligently of something that is lost, when you lose your keys, you can't go, you can't leave until you find them. Right? It's not just a search that you just kind of, maybe I'll find them later. No, you can't stop looking till you find it. Right? And so that's what diligently searching this thing is over here. So we have to hate doubt. We have to hate doubt within ourselves so that we're able to trust in the Most High, which is a part of hating yourself. You're hating the things that are in yourself that's pulling you away from life, from the Most High. And the same thing is true for those that propagate doubt. Even if it be your father, mother, sister, brother. Even if it be the closest relationships that you have in life. The ones that should be the greatest influence to you, if they're pulling you away from the Most High, then you have created an idol. And so when you think about Joseph, when you think about what's going on with Joseph and his brothers and Israel, the thing that they were loving the most whether it be their brother Benjamin or their father, and his love for Benjamin was keeping them away from the master. They wasn't able to get close to the master because they wasn't bringing to the master all that they had. They've been done. They've been done with the provisions that they acquired from the last visit. They would have been back. They said in the text they would have been back, but we held off because we wasn't trying to bring Benjamin up here because we didn't know what was going to happen. They was holding on to this thing that they had inside of them, their love for their brother, their remorse from their other brother. They're not wanting to allow what happened to their youngest brother, what happened to the next to the youngest, and not having to deal with the pain and anguish that their father would have to go through from losing. These are all the things that they was holding on to, and all of those things was keeping them from getting to the master. And so the same thing is true with Messiah. When we have these things that we're holding on to, that we keep within ourselves, and we say, I'm going to give Messiah everything except for this one thing. I like this thing. I'm just going to keep this. Maybe I could repurpose and make this thing something that is palatable over here. Messiah said you need to deny yourself. And he said, whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my top one.
There are some things that it's interesting here what you're saying, because there were some things that Jacob wanted to keep, but there were some things he was willing to let go of. Like Simeon, he was okay with him being over there.
Yeah.
He was willing to let that go.
Yeah.
But Benjamin was too precious to let go.
Right. He had things that in his mind it was cool, to lose those things. Right? There was things that it didn't have that much in his mind. It didn't have the weight of say like Benjamin.
Can you imagine Simeon like nobody's coming back?
I know, he's over there like, he was over there however long it took. They went up there to buy provisions. They got the provisions, they got more than what they was buying, and plus extra money on top of that to take back. And so they went up there for a specific amount of provisions. They got those provisions plus. And so the amount of time that it took for them to use up all of the stuff that they went up there for, plus all that he gave, it don't say how long it was, right? But it was an extended amount of time where Simeon, the one that was left up there, probably thought that they wasn't never coming back. But when you think about what is going on over here, understanding what Joseph is requiring of the family, yeah, he wants to see his people, right? But again, beneath the surface, we're able to understand that he is requiring them to give their all. Just like the Most High requires for us to give him his all. Just like Messiah requires for us to give him his all. And if you can't do it, he said, you're unable to be my top one. if you can't give me the thing that's going to kill you. He said, whoever does not bear his stake and come after me, if you can't take up the thing that's killing you and let Messiah be the one that's in charge of that, then I don't want you. Don't come back to my face, like Joseph said, without your all.
That's right.
And they didn't come back. They didn't come back until they had the things that was necessary. So how do we think then? How do we think that we're going to sit up here and half-heartedly follow after Messiah? And he want that. He don't want it. He don't want that. He said, if you can't allow for me to be the most influential one in your life, then you're not even worthy of me teaching you anything. I can't even begin to teach you nothing unless you able to give up everything first. And sometimes that means walking away from your loved ones. And so with Yaakov, this was a real problem. This was a significant issue again, because this was his beloved son. This was the only thing he had left to remind him of his baby that died, his wife that died. He was able to look at little Benjamin and see, oh man, he has her eyes. He has a way about him that just reminds me of.
They didn't have pictures.
Huh?
They didn't have pictures.
No. They didn't have pictures. The only thing he had left was looking at Benjamin's little face. And that just reminded him of his beloved. That was the only thing he had left. But at the end of the day, he say, go ahead. It's cool, take him. And if he'll never come back, then that it is what it is. He decided that he was able to trust in the Most High and do whatever the Most High will have for him to do. He was able to look at his situation and understand that he wasn't going to sit up there and cause his whole family line to die of starvation because of the things that he was holding on to. His fear. He wasn't allow his fear for things, his fear of losing his son, his faithlessness. He wasn't going to allow that to be the motivating factor in his life. He said, I'm going to trust in the Most High and be happy with and accept whatever it is. He wasn't going to be happy with it. He was going to accept. He said, if I bereave, I bereave. He was willing to accept whatever the Most High brought to the table. And so this is what Yeshua is asking his disciples for. You take up your torture stake. You understand that there's going to be uncomfortable situations that you come and face in my name, and yet you're going to still do and follow me anyway. Joseph said, it's fine. If you ain't going to bring the brother up, then you won't eat. But don't come back here without him. Let's look over at Psalm 119 again. There's another verse we could look at. Psalms.
Might as well just stay right where you was at. Down there.
Psalm 119 and 163. Yeah, read that verse right there.
It says, I have hated falsehood and loathed it. Your Torah I have loved.
He said, I hate falsehood. I loathe it. We have to be in a place where we hate the things that are contrary to the Most High. I hate those. That's how you get to the place of continually being in living a life that's according to right ruling and in right standing with the Most High. If you hate things that's against Him so much, how can you fall into the thing if you hate it and you loathe it? You won't. You won't fall into falsehoods if you hate falsehoods and loathe them. So when we can get to the place of hating lies and doubt, things that could potentially live within us, that is how we're able to hate our own selves and turn to the only one who's able to save us, who is Yeshua HaMashiach. Look at James 1. James 1 7 and 8.
It says, for that man should not think that he shall receive whatever from the master. He is a double-minded, unstable in all his ways.
Double-minded. Double-minded is somebody who wants to sit up here and say, I love the Lord. But they live their life in doubt. Someone who's double-minded is say, I live a life of righteousness. But they be steady lying. They doing all these things that's contrary to the Most High. They saying one thing and they doing another thing. That's being double-minded. Two-spirited. How you gonna be two-spirited when the Most High talk about, Yeshua talk about having the Holy Spirit? If you two-spirited, what that mean? You got the Holy Spirit and the unholy spirit at the same time? That don't work, right? The double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. There ain't nothing that he's stable in. Because he double-minded. He's two-spirited. That word here, let's look at this here. Because there's another word in there that I want to look at. This here, vacillating. That's a good one there. Vacillating. Let's see what that is. Vacillating. Wavering. Reeling. Fluctuating. Something's fluctuating. It's going up and down. Right? It's going up and then it's going down. That's like these bipolar. But in the spirit. You happy. You good in the spirit, and then you bad in the spirit. Like you fluctuating. You vacillating. Right? But that double-minded, vacillating, wavering, fluctuating man is unstable in all his ways. Right? And so you can't be a follower of Messiah and you vacillating. You wavering. Because that's the opposite of faith. Because faith is steadfastness and steadiness and sturdiness and stability. Right? This is the opposite of stability. All right, we still talking about Joseph and the fact that he wanted for his brothers to give him his all. But again, understand that Joseph is a picture of Messiah. Let's go back to Luke and the words of Messiah, verses chapter 14. We read this. Let's look at it again just to refresh ourselves. Read 28, 30 again.
It says, 28 through 30?
Yeah.
It says, "For who of you wishing to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it?"
When you come to Messiah, it's like as if you are a builder. Or you could be a demolitioner, like some people that I know. But you go into a job, you got to know what it takes in order to complete the task. You got to think about that ahead of time. So how much more so when we think about things in the physical, are those same things true in the spiritual? You can't I can't sit up here and get in a fight with somebody who I didn't really you scope him up and down and make sure he didn't have them cauliflower ears before I start messing with him. And then he mess around and put and choke me out or something. Because I forgot to look and see if he had cauliflower ears or not. Or put me in some Brazilian jiu-jitsu move that I can't get out of. We was just at the airport. It must have been a wrestling team or something got off the plane. But I'm observant. I'm an observant Jew. I'm observant. I looked at these people. I said, oh. First you see them and they got kind of like these athletic builds and things. But when you see them cauliflower ears, oh, that's a wrestler right there. He could put you in a little chokeout move. You got to keep your distance with him. You can't let him grab you. Right? You got to keep your reach. You know what I'm saying? You can't let him get in your jab. Because he grab you up, it's over for you. Right? But you have to count the cost. You have to look at the job that's in front of you and understand what it takes to complete it. Because what's the point of starting a thing if you ain't going to complete it? Like, this is the most important thing that you need to complete in your whole life. We're talking about everlasting life. How you going to begin the journey of everlasting life and then that everlasting journey gets cut short? Keep on going. Verse 29.
It says 29, "Otherwise, when he has laid the foundation and is unable to finish it, all who see will begin to mock him."
Them people gonna sit up there and mock you. Look at this fool. They're gonna mock you and they're gonna call you a fool. He started this job. He didn't even think about all the stuff that I gotta just be honest right now. We sit up here, this is how we talk about the bosses. They sit up there in their little offices with their clean jeans on and their clean boots. And their hard hats that they only wear when they come to look out at the job site. They ain't out there getting dirty. They have this theoretical idea of how something is supposed to get done and what it needs.
Expensive truck.
They got a wonderful, beautiful truck and thing on that got a scratch on it.
They drive that.
They ain't put nothing in the truck bed of this truck. Ain't nothing back there. They got the little tonneau cover. It's covered up, and there ain't nothing back there, probably but the little string that goes across to keep the groceries from going all the way to the back. That's what I'm trying to get to. Right? They come up with these theories about how the thing's supposed to be done, but they don't know what happens out there in the field, and they don't count the cost a lot of the times. And we, as the people with the boots on the ground, many times had to go back and say, well, I know that I'm looking at the print and it says for me to do X, Y, Z. But if I do that, it ain't right. Mm-hmm. The thing ain't going to work the way that you want it to work. So we should do it like this. Right? And so this is what this little parable that Messiah is talking about. You got to think about all of the things from every perspective so that you're able to meet the goal that you set out to meet. Otherwise, not only are you not going to make it, but those that looked at you are going to look at you and say, what am I going to do that for? He started off doing it and he didn't even finish.
Example.
Terrible example. But I'm going to follow after what he talking about for. He don't even know what he talking about. Mocking him. What was you going to say?
Well, I was also reminded of that tunnel project where they put all those wires down going across the river.
Yeah, the underground, yeah.
They had to yank it all out.
Yeah, exactly. However long the river is, here in Pittsburgh, they made the underground subway route from one side of the river to the other. And then they pulled all the cables in underneath. And then come to find out, they was the wrong cables. So they had to pull them all out. They had to pull them all out and put new ones in. I don't know how much money that company lost on that. But it's amazing that they still exist. Because copper ain't cheap by any means. And for you to sit up there and waste all of that, you got to count the costs. And those people are mocked to this day.
I don't even know nothing about construction. I know about that.
Exactly.
I know that was just the most ridiculous catastrophe.
Exactly.
But I think that's why consistency is key. People, if you're inconsistent, if you're consistently working on this project, which is yourself coming into the Most High, then you're gonna work and get it completed. But if you're inconsistent in it, there's no foundation. There's no,
Yeah. And again, faith is continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is continuity. Faith is consistency. Inconsistency is doubt. Inconsistency is faithlessness.
Right.
And so we have to understand that, what these things are so that we know what we're supposed to be doing and what we ain't supposed to be doing. And understanding that this fight, this life, this race that we're entering into, the cost that it takes in order to finish it is to deny ourselves, is to deny all of those things which are comfortable for us, and to go to the uncomfortable place and put our trust in the Most High and move according to the way that He would have for us to move, which is sometimes contrary to the way that we, in our own thoughts and ideas, would want to be moving. Let's go over here. Same thing, but a different situation. Matthew 12, 46. Wait a second. There we go. 46. Start reading at 46.
And while he was still talking to the crowds, see, his mother and brothers stood outside seeking to speak with him. And one said to him, see, your mother and your brothers are standing outside, seeking to speak with you. But he answering said to the one who spoke to him, who is my mother and who are my brothers? And having stretched out his hand toward his taught ones, he said, see my brothers, see my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the desire of my Father who is in the heavens is my brother and sister and mother.
Okay, very good. So, when we think about again the thing that Messiah is saying over here, understanding that the people who does a desire of my Father, that's who my mother and brother and sister are. You're not gonna sit up here and stop me while I'm sitting up here talking to you about everlasting life and say, "Oh, your mother's here." He said, "I'm dealing with the kingdom talk right now. My mother and my brothers are sitting right here listening, right?" And so that's all he's talking about in terms of understanding that we have to be primarily about the Most High and His business. We can't allow for our own selfish desires to come and trump what it is that the Most High will have for us to be doing. We can't allow for our own desires to cause us to be separated from the Master, like how Jacob and his brothers were doing whenever they weren't willing to give Joseph their all. So we have to be able to understand that, for us, this thing that we love, whatever this thing may be, this thing that we're trying to hold on to, we have to understand that Messiah is only going to have our best interests at hand. So therefore, this thing that we are reluctant to give over to him, we have to know that it's okay. Because let's look over here. Let's look over in John. Let's look in John 10. John 10. What does verse 11 say?
It says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep."
He said, "I'm the good shepherd." And so how is it that, okay, when we thinking about Joseph and Israel and the brother situation, they're kind of in the dark where they don't understand who Joseph is. But we know, as looking at the situation, that Joseph is in fact a picture of Messiah. So we're able to understand that anything that he's desiring for them to be doing, to be bringing forth to hand over unto him, is only going to do them good. Right? And so when we think about our life, if we were to decide that we were going to have our lives be dedicated to the kingdom, we're talking about the propagation of the good news. Right? Right? It's the thing that's good. It's the only thing that's good. People try to call Messiah good. He said, "Why thou callest me good? There's none good but Elohim." But we talking about the thing that the Most High has given to us. That's good. So how is it if we was to say that we was going to have our life's work be dedicated to good news? How you go wrong with that? He's saying, "Give me everything or you can't follow me." The end result's going to be good. What's Romans 5 and 8 say right there?
says, but Elohim proves his own love for us, and that while we were still sinners, Messiah died for us.
The King James here, read this right here. Read down here.
It says, down KJV, it says, but Elohim commanded his love toward us.
He said he commanded his love toward us. He didn't just like say, it's interesting when you think about these words. We got to always think about the words. He commanded his love toward us. He didn't just passively, just like he not asking for us to just kind of halfway search for him. But if you commanded something, it's different if I just ask Africa. It'd be nice if I could have some water. That's one thing as opposed to saying, get me some water. Mm-hmm. Like if it's nice, like that's a nice thing that I could potentially have. Maybe I really want it now, maybe I don't. But if I say, give me that now, like I'm wanting that. But we're talking about Elohim commanding his love toward us. In that, while we was in a messed up situation, he made a way for us to get out of that situation. Knowing that he couldn't deal with us the way that we was, he still made provisions for us to get out of that situation and get into a right situation. And so, even though Joseph knew that his brothers didn't know who he was, he still gave him the brothers the answers to help for them to be able to get. He was creating a situation where all of the people could be there together again. They didn't see it, but we're able to, on the outside looking in, see that the master actually was looking at the scope of everything, right? And so let's just think about a couple more things over here before we begin to be done over here. Let's go over to let's see here. I want to look at Proverbs 3, 5 through 12. Because, we think about the fact that Joseph's intentions, we know his intentions, right? And we are able to see the perfect picture that is being created over here. And so when we look back at the Torah and Jacob in the position that he was in, him not having the full picture, that's why Jacob's part, Israel's part in this situation is so important to understand. He didn't have the full plan. He didn't have everything figured out. But what he did have figured out was the Almighty. And so even though he didn't have all the answers, he was still able to say, I trust in Yahweh. Like it says in Proverbs 3. Start reading at verse 5.
Trust in Yahweh with all your heart, and lean not into your own understanding. Know him in all your ways, and he makes all your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahweh, and turn away from evil. It is healing to your navel and moistening to your bones. Esteem Yahweh with your goods and with the first fruits of all your increase. Then your storehouses shall be filled with plenty, and your vats overflow with new wine.
It's interesting how when we look at this is Proverbs, and this don't really got nothing to do with Joseph and Israel and the brothers, but it's exactly what is going on over there. It's exactly what Jacob had to do. He had to trust in Yahweh and not in his own understanding. He didn't know what was going on, but he was forced to trust in Yahweh even though he didn't know what was going to happen. But when he was able to go and do that, his storehouse was about to be filled with plenty, and his vats was about to be overflowed with new wines. Keep on reading.
It says, "My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahweh, and do not loathe his reproof. For whom Yahweh loves, he reproves, as a father the son whom he delights in."
Okay, very good. So, this is something that goes along with what we see over here with Joseph and his brothers. I wanted to go over real fast and look at back to Genesis. Back to Genesis. We're going to get ready to wind it down over here. If we go back over to Genesis 43. 43, go back to, let's see. 43 and 23. Read that verse right there, 23.
It says, "But he said, Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your Elohim and the Elohim of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. Your silver has come to me." And he brought Simeon out to them.
I thought it was interesting that he tries to, I feel like he's trying to give some hints over here. They wasn't able to figure it out. But to me, I feel like it's a hint. Because why is he sitting up here talking about your Elohim? And not only your Elohim, but the Elohim of your father. Like, how does he know that they have an Elohim, and the Elohim that they have is the Elohim of their father? Like, we know that he's speaking of the Elohim, who's Yahweh, Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But this is what's Joseph's
Zophnath Paneah.
This is Zophnath Paneah talking, right? This ain't
Through an interpreter too.
yeah through somebody else. This isn't their little brother, right? But he's saying, peace be with you. Don't be afraid. Your Elohim, the Elohim of your father, he's being specific to them over here. He is blessing you. And so again, when we think about what is happening over here, again, he's forcing Joseph is of his father and his brothers. He's forcing them, he's forcing their hand and causing for them to deny themselves. To deny themselves. Right? And so when we think about, what it is for us in this life, this is really what it is this is the life that we have to live, is the denial of ourselves. Because it's not about us, right? It's about the kingdom, right? What's it saying? 1 Peter 2 and 11. 1 Peter 2 and 11.
It says, "Beloved ones, I appeal to you, as sojourners and pilgrims, to abstain from fleshly lusts which battle against the being."
When we think about the things that separate us from the Most High, the things that sometimes cause us to be pulled away from the Almighty, things that actually dwell in ourselves, these things battle against our souls, right? Carnality, right? Battles against our souls. And so these are the things that we have to deny. We're supposed to be denying these things, not things that are good for us anyway. These are things that are detrimental to our situation, and in fact battle against our souls. And so we have to be in a place where we are denying these things. Let's look at Matthew 19. Let's look at a couple more scriptures here. Matthew 19. Matthew 19. Look, let's verse 29.
And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life.
Shall inherit everlasting life. This thing ain't this ain't about you torturing yourself. It's not about you doing this thing that's bad for you, right? This is about living a life that deals with everlasting life. We look at these temporal relationships and things that are of this world, and give them a place that is far above where it belongs, because the thing that that Messiah is calling for us to do for his name's sake, by the way, is so that we're able to inherit everlasting life. He makes these desires of us not so that it can hurt us or be detrimental to us, but so that we can actually live. Let's look at Philippians 2 and 4. Philippians 2 and 4. Hold on one second here. Let's see where it is. Philippians 2 and 4. What's that say?
Each one should look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others.
So when we think about Jacob and what it is that Joseph was requiring of him, it was totally selfish for him to have thought that he was supposed to hold back Benjamin.
You mean Jacob?
Jacob.
I think he said.
Joseph wanted them to bring Benjamin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that it would have been completely selfish for Jacob to want to hold back Benjamin. It would be only about him dealing with his own interests and selfishness, right? But the apostle over here is teaching that we aren't supposed to be thinking about our own selves and our own self-interests.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I want to sit up here and deal with these wicked people? These people is
Like
wicked
dysfunctional,
out here.
Dysfunctional.
But it ain't about that, and it ain't about how uncomfortable these people cause your life to be. We have to have a mind for the kingdom of Elohim and adding to the expanse of the kingdom. And sometimes it's necessary for us to make sacrifices for the purposes of the kingdom and put ourselves in uncomfortable situations for the purposes of the kingdom. These are all ways that we, deny ourselves, right? Because we, in our own minds, in our own hearts, we want to do the things that are that are easy, that are convenient for ourselves, that don't, cause me to extend myself too much. But Yeshua, as the example, he kind of extended himself a lot.
Beyond measure.
Beyond measure. When you think about the lengths that it was that Elohim commanded his love for us by giving his son, Messiah, Yeshua. Yeshua, in his last night on earth, talks about, when he prays to the Father and he says, he asks to glorify thou me back to the Father like I was from before. So if you think about the fact that in order for Messiah to even have come to be the sacrifice for us, to be the Lamb of Elohim, he had to leave from glory to even deal with us in the first place. And then to get down here and walk around and to actually be the manifestation of, all of the prophecies and things. And for people to still treat him as if he was just only who he was kind of in the physical realm. Like the people who wasn't able to understand him from a spiritual perspective and only thought about him from a physical perspective and said, that's just Joseph's son.
Carpenter's son.
He just a little carpenter. What's he gonna do? But from Messiah's standpoint and understanding he himself who he was, the sacrifice that he made even just to be there. And then so if we think about all the lengths that Messiah went through to bring us out of darkness into his marvelous light, there's nothing that we could say or compare about the things that we might potentially go through that can equate to what it is that Messiah did for us. It's nothing. It's nothing. The hardships that we might face, it don't even matter what you could come up with, is not as great as what it is that Messiah did for us. And so we should be able to look at, whatever thing that's in front of us and say, well, this little bit of hardship that I would face if I sat up here and tried to do this for the kingdom, it ain't nothing like what Messiah faced. So I'm going to do it. Because each one should look not only for his own interest, but also for the interests of others. Okay, and lastly, I want to just look at 1 Corinthians, right? And then we're going to be done with this whole thing. 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10 and 24.
24 says, let no one seek his own, but each one that of the other.
Okay, that's the same idea, right, as what we just looked at in the other place, right? Because, again, we have to think about the greater good. It's all part of counting the cost. When we think about the disciples, when Messiah talked to his disciples the last time when he was about to go back to the Father, he said, you guys is going to be, he said to them, you're going to be persecuted. But even though you're going to be persecuted, you still got to go throughout the whole world and preach this gospel. And you got to go out here and make disciples. And even just the idea of making disciples, as disciples themselves, they're able to look back and look at the things that they put Yeshua through when they was disciples. And then they could imagine what they was getting ready to have to go through that was similar to what they was putting Messiah through. even in their recent situation, when you think about the fact that, he's sitting up there about to die. And he can't get them to stay up all night with him. And just stay awake while I sit up here and pray to the Most High. All of these things, they had time to sit up here and contemplate all of this when Messiah's making these statements like, go out and make disciples. Oh, you mean I got to go out here and deal with people just like how you had to sit up here and deal with me? All of these things, caused them to have an understanding of the full picture. And so we, just like Israel, just like Jacob, have to come to the place where we're able to look at, well, this thing that the Most High, that the Master is asking of me, I know is uncomfortable. I know it's going to hurt. I know it's not the best case scenarios for what I think should be happening or going on. But at the same time, I also know that for the greater good is what it is that the Most High would have for me to be doing. And so I'll do it. Even if I don't like any of it. He said, if I bereave, I bereave. If something bad that I don't like happens, the only thing I could do is just trust in the Most High. But he got to that place to do it. And, if they don't go back, if they never go back, they never get to this next part of the family being reunited. And so the same thing is true for you and I. If we don't take these uncomfortable steps for the purposes of those that are seeking Messiah and don't know where to go to find him, and you know the way, if we don't do our part, then those that are without the gospel, they're lost. And then we also have to ask the question, if we're not doing our part, if we're not walking as Messiah walked, if we're not taking up our torture stake, right? If we're not doing the things, performing our task, is our place secured? Like, is this walk just about you just getting your own self together? It's only part of the thing. It's only part of the thing. It's not the complete picture. The complete picture isn't you figuring out your life. But the complete picture is you figuring out your life so that you can help others figure out their lives. And you can all walk together towards the kingdom. Okay, so does anyone, we don't have any questions, comments over here? If you have any questions, comments, this is your last chance to go ahead and put it in the text, put it in the comments. Okay, so that being said, if we don't have any additions, we'll be done for now, I guess, and we'll say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And y'all willing, we'll be back on next week to continue on with the Triennial Torah portion. Everyone has a... Thank you very much. I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of the Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.